This gentleman that I'm about to bring on next, he's someone that you just can't get a reaction out of. He's steady. He's as cool as a cucumber. That man can make a snow cone in a sandstorm. That's how smooth he is. That's how cold-blooded he is. And this man brings to the show over 25 years. I repeat, over 25 years of not only journalistic experience, but journalistic integrity. He covers the Philadelphia Eagles for Sports Illustrated, also known as SI.com. He covers the Eagles for Jacob Sports. He's also the leading man, the leading voice of Bird 365. You guys know who he is. Let's not play stupid here. John McMullen. Sir, it's always a pleasure to have you on the platform. How are you feeling?
What's up, buddy? It's good to see you. Yeah, I mean, that just says I'm old. That was a nice introduction, but that just says I'm old.
Come on, man.
I appreciate it. It's good to see you.
Yes, it is. It is good to see you, John. It's always good to talk to you. I always like to pick your brain. I credit you with a lot of my football knowledge in terms of the ins and outs and just making sure I stay even keel with certain things and not just overreact. And just, again, like I said, you're very leveled. And you were very leveled in that press conference yesterday. Yesterday was very eventful, to say the least. And I guess before we get too deep into the weeds, right? Are you able to give us any sort of a updated injury report? What's the latest on guys' health, things like that with the Philadelphia Eagles?
It's the same guys who've been out. So let me pull up the last injury report we had for you. But Tyler Steen, I mean, the positive was that Tyler Steen was back in team drills for the first time. And that's important because, when you think about when he was injured, suffered a bit of an ankle injury. He had taken every first team rep, missed just over a week, and then he comes back and all of a sudden Mekhi Becton's in there. So Nick Sirianni kind of downplayed that, but I think the preseason game might be a little bit more important for him to prove that he's back in that competition. So that was a positive. CJ Gardner-Johnson is out with a shoulder, but I'm told there's no long-term concern there. So no need to worry. He's been on the sidelines watching practice, so it's not terribly serious from that standpoint. Paris Campbell's out with a groin injury, which is always a concern with receivers and fast guys and things like that. And you've seen some of the first team reps. People making a lot about Johnny Wilson, Britton Covey, John Ross trying to make a stamp on that potential wide receiver 3 job. But I still think the Eagles might look outside the organization. Oren Burks has really been difficult. He got hurt in the first practice, hasn't been back yet, dealing with a knee injury. Mekhi Gardner making that move from cornerback to safeties out with a hamstring. So that's a big blow for him. And Brandon Smith, who's one of the deep linebackers, has been out with a concussion. So those are the main guys. Sidney Brown remains on the PUP list as he comes back from his torn ACL. And Cooper DeJean is on the NFI list with a hamstring injury. Was told at the start of that it would be about 3 weeks. We're now about 2 weeks. So he's going to need at least another week, but he should be back relatively soon.
Okay, that's good to hear. I want to transition to what happened yesterday. Like I said, yesterday was eventful for everybody, especially the Jalen Hurts press conference. But let's just start with the the root of everything, right? That ESPN article written by Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler. Look, at the end of the day, got to give credit to guys for being thorough in their research. Got to give guys credit for being thorough in their writing, regardless if you agree or disagree with the outcome. I want to get your instant reaction to when the article came out. And then I'm also curious, how come it always seems to be these national guys that tend to know more than people in your neck of the woods? That's something I would never understand, because I've always thought the local guys are more keyed into situations than anybody nationally.
Well, they are, and Tim's local, so I mean, Tim was the main part of that, and did a great job with it. The most interesting part for me is the Wink Martindale stuff,
Mm.
and I can only speculate. Maybe that part of it was Jeremy Fowler. I don't know. But as far as the national local thing, what happens is little inside baseball, but a lot of information you get is from agents, and for them to get their players and spin their players in the best positive light, whether it comes to contracts or things of that nature, typically they're going to go with national guys. So that's how. And there's also a little bit of a give and take. You're expected to sort of carry the water for that information. So I think my buddy Mike Sealski coined the term information broker.
Mm.
And, if you're looking to stay down the middle, which if you look at the Jeff McLeans of the world, the Zach Bermans of the world, people like that, you're not going to give out favors for information. So that's a little bit of the catch-22, unfortunately, of the industry. But in this particular case, I mean, the key part of that is Tim. I've known Tim for 20 years, tremendous reporter. And a lot of the stuff was known, had been talked about before, and there was some interesting new stuff, most notably the Wink Martindale stuff, which I thought was good and bad. I thought it was good that you see sort of the work ethic of Jalen Hurts, and he's struggling with wing splits, and the Giants and Wink parted ways, and he had this rare opportunity to call the guy up, and he's got no other. He's willing. If he's willing to talk, he can talk because he's no longer with the Giants, and he did, and he explained some things, and I think uncovering every potential rock. And I'm also told since then the Eagles coaches did the same thing. So it wasn't just Jalen, was the Eagles coaches as well, as they were trying to figure out, what was going wrong in that slide last season. So I think that part of it was good. The bad part of it is shouldn't need Wayne Martindale's help from the coaching perspective. I mean, you see what he's doing. You got the film. You should be able to decipher that. So that's a little bit of a strike to Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff from last season, in my estimation, at least. But, as far as the team sources talking about Jalen and or Nick, that's one of those things where guys have their opinions, and everybody has an opinion. So you can, one of the most interesting parts to me was that Tim got a team source to saying Jalen would have preferred to, maybe throw it underneath a little bit more, the intermediate stuff that the Eagles, the over the middle of the stuff that the Eagles typically don't do or don't do well. And that was a little bit of a surprise to me because, from the people that I've talked to, he was one of the, he fell in love with the explosive play. I think the Eagles as a whole fell in love and were constantly pushing for it instead of taking the stuff that was there at times. The Seattle game would be the best example of that, where, he was the one trying to push it down the field as the Eagles were going, in a more patient route. And probably if they continued that way, they probably win that football game. So, it wasn't a bad article. I think a lot of people looked at it and said, "Oh, there's the bad media trying to take shots at the Eagles." I even got, on my show, I even got, "Oh, things were going too well, so I had to throw up." I'm like, "Come on, guys, that's not what we do. It's not."
Me personally, I called it a distraction. That's what I've been calling it, a distraction.
Well, it's a distraction, but I think a lot of people don't understand, Tone. It's not our job to protect the Philadelphia Eagles.
I know. You told me that. You told me that very early.
We're not there to help them. We're not there to ignore things that might be a little bit uncomfortable. We're not there to say, oh, this is a distraction, so we're not going to address it.
Mm.
You have information, you uncover information. There's nothing wrong with the article. It wasn't about timing. I had people say, oh, it was the timing of it. No, when you're dealing with that many sources, it's not like, oh, okay, we're going to publish on what's today's date? August 7th. We're going to publish on August 7th because the Eagles are having too many good practices. I got that. I'm like, I can't help those people. I don't know what to tell them.
You know, it's like you, when I read the article, because I read it quite a few times just to make sure I was very, keyed in on what I was reading. And like you, it was stuff that was already discussed. That was stuff that was already broached during the season, stuff that was broached at the end of the season, during the exit meetings, just throughout the entire offseason, right?
Yeah.
And like you, there were two things that stood out to me: the Wink Martindale aspect and the fact that Jalen Hurts was looking for more of a complex or layered offense, an offense that goes beyond just taking the top of a defense, but being surgical and picking them apart. I think in this article, Jalen Hurts made out the best out of anybody.
Yeah, well, I guess that depends on whose camp. If you want to pit Nick Sirianni against Jalen Hurts, I think it depends on what camp you want to be. I personally, they don't have a terrible relationship. I mean, everybody saw the riding in Dom's golf cart together. It's not like they're punching each other behind the scenes. I mean, they get along. I think from what I wrote about this on Sports Illustrated, I think the biggest part of this whole thing is a guy who wasn't even mentioned in the piece, and that's Jason Kelce. And I wrote about this on Sports Illustrated. And by the way, it has nothing to do with Jason Kelce, future Hall of Famer. We all know how good he was. And he's not, don't get me wrong, he's not responsible for any disconnect between Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, and Brian Johnson. He's got a tremendous personal relationship with Jalen Hurts. You've seen that on his own podcast. You've seen those two interact. They get along wonderfully. But, and this is very counterintuitive for most people, the proficiency he performed his job at was the roadblock to Jalen's search for that more autonomy. And that's something Jalen has admitted publicly on the record. And I went back and I got the quote, and I'm trying to pull it up. So this is what he said. It's been a role I've been waiting on. I know I've had a well-respected guy, Jason, a Hall of Fame guy, that's been doing it. So he understood that he wasn't going to get that autonomy as long as Jason Kelce was playing. The silver lining of the retirement is Hurts getting what he wants. And Kellen Moore is also on the record confirming now that the quarterback will have the so-called trump card when it comes to calling protections and getting the plays needed to in the moments. Kelce was so good. Like I said, Hurts understood it, but it's something he craved. And the last quote, long before, which I think everybody missed, had nothing to do with him talking to me or Martin or Tim about the article. He said, now we're forced to have an opportunity to make a change, something I've been wanting, and I think that's how it's supposed to be. So that's what I think is where he wants to be. And I don't know if you saw the viral clip of Tom Brady this offseason, went all over the place about him talking about modern quarterback play and how how quarterbacks judge themselves. And he brought up himself and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and guys, Hall of Fame type quarterbacks who ran things so beautifully at the line of scrimmage. And he said, all of us, it's not about touchdowns. It's not about Super Bowls. It's about, did you get your team into the right play as much as humanly possible? And sometimes and Tom said, sometimes it's not even going to work because you're going to make a bad throw. Somebody might miss a block. Somebody might fall, whatever. There could be a million things going wrong. But how they judge themselves is, did you get your team into the best play possible from play to play to play to play? And I think it's positive that Jalen recognizes and he's craved that autonomy, and now he's going to get it for the first time. And that was never going to happen with Jason here. And everybody knew it and everybody understood it because he was so unique and how he was so good. But I think Jalen was he thought he was going to get a little bit more with Brian Johnson, who's, a longtime family friend, and he didn't. And I think he was disappointed by that.
So is it fair to say, since you brought up Brian Johnson, is it fair to say that although he was given the role as OC and play caller, he wasn't really responsible for the product that we saw?
No, he's not responsible. Nick has said that. Nick has said that a million times that
right.
He's responsible. It's his offense. It was his offense. Now it isn't. It was his offense when Shane was doing it. Shane Steichen. It was his offense with when Brian Johnson was doing it. So the best correlation is the menu, right? You go to your favorite restaurant, you got to order off the menu. You can't make the dishes. You can't make what's going to be on that menu. Nick's made the menu, and Brian had to pick off the menu. Same as Shane. Now there's a little bit.
So
there's
Shane
a little bit.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Well, there's a little bit. Those two had a long-term prior relationship, so he felt a little bit more secure with Shane, but it was the same setup. Shane was picking stuff off the menu, and Brian was picking stuff off the menu. So it was always Shane's offense. I mean, Nick's offense. God forbid I make that mistake.
Right. No. So at this point now, in 2024, you bring Kellen Moore in the building, right? And obviously the narrative surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles is the fact that it's no longer Nick's offense, it's Kellen Moore's offense. Are we now picking off of the Kellen Moore menu, or is Kellen Moore taking what he wants from Nick's menu and added it to his own?
It's completely Kellen's menu, and it's his decision. But, I do think he's smart enough to take what Jalen was doing well under the old offense and integrate it into his offense. But he doesn't have to. But, from watching camp and practices, if anything, it looks like it's going to be more of a commitment to the quarterback running game. Even adding some layers to it, little option stuff with Saquon, who, brings a better presence and maybe can create some spacing. Plus, Jalen looks healthier. He looks back to his old self when it comes to explosion and things like that. So I think he's smart enough to take some of that stuff and integrate it into the offense. So, but it is his offense. It's no longer Nick's offense, which, I don't know if that's going to work because he's the head coach, and, you know, I don't like the setup, but that is the setup.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that you don't like the setup because this setup to me doesn't seem like it doesn't seem as if it's poised to last. And I say that because Kellen Moore's a young guy. You know, it's rumored that he has aspirations to be a head coach at some point. He has interviewed for head coaching jobs, but obviously close but no cigar. This Eagles offense is very talented. And if he can execute this offense with Jalen Hurts at the level that at least the fans will love and that, we expect again with all this talent, is it fair to say that Kellen Moore is on a 1-year rental? And if so, doesn't that put Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni back to square one with Nick's menu that didn't work last year?
Potentially if it goes well. I mean, but Howie talked about this, and and he's right. There's so much turnover in coaching in general. The old Bum Phillips quote I love: there's two kinds of coaches, them that's hired and them that's fired. Everybody's got a shelf life. So, and Howie pointed out, look, if you're good, you lose coaches. If you're bad, you lose coaches. If you're good, they're going to leave for better jobs, like Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen. If you're bad, then you're going to be scapegoated. Not that they were bad, but bad in relative to expectations, and that was Brian and Alex Tanney last season, and Sean Desai on defense, and Matt Patricia, obviously. So, if you're bad, you're going to lose coaches. If you're good, you're going to lose coaches. So that's part of the nature of the NFL. And with Kellen Moore, look, I think people don't realize he was with Dallas, he was with the Chargers, and now he's with the Eagles. This is his third team in 3 years. He's under tremendous pressure, just like Nick Sirianni. A lot of people look at Nick Sirianni's coaching for his job, and he is. So is Kellen Moore. Because all of a sudden, as good as his reputation has been, is people start to look at that and say, well, Dallas got rid of him. And technically they got better on paper. They still lose in the playoffs, but numbers wise, the Chargers got rid of him. They changed their head coach, obviously. So that's part of it. And Justin Herbert got hurt at the end of last year. That's part of it. Bottom line is they went backward. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't reach expectations with what everybody thinks is an all-star team, he's in trouble. And guess what? If Nick Sirianni gets fired, Kellen Moore's getting fired, because whomever the next head coach is, Jeffrey typically is going to go with an offensive guy. B, if he does, he's not going to want Kellen Moore. And even if it's a Bill Belichick, because Jeffrey's a Boston guy. He loved the Patriots. He tried to buy the Patriots before he bought the Eagles, for those who don't know. And even if we were to go down that route, Bill Belichick's not going to want Kellen Moore, or it's very unlikely. And that stretches the Vic Fangio on defense. So everybody, if Nick gets fired, you got a guy who's coming in, and they'll tell him to keep Stoutland, and they might even say, hey, let's keep Kellen Moore. And depending who it is, maybe they're okay with it. Mm-hmm. But the odds are they're going to want to get their own people.
So, and again, this will be my last question on the whole Nick Sirianni, Kellen Moore dynamic. So you don't see a scenario where, again, God forbid, things don't go well. You don't see a scenario where if Nick is let go, Kellen Moore is elevated.
No. First of all, I don't think Jeffrey's that guy. He's not going to fire a head coach in the season. And if he does, it's going to be Chip Kelly. Like, it's going to be right at the end of the season. Maybe it's gotten so bad that he just wants the guy out of the building, and Nick doesn't have that personality of Chip Kelly, so he's not going to fire Nick in season. So no, and the thought process that if the Eagles go to, I don't know, because I've heard this tightrope trying to be traversed by people that, well, if they're good, and they think they're going to lose Kellen Moore, they'll fire Nick Sirianni. And I mean, come on. If you win 13, 14 games, you're not firing the head coach.
Right. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah. So, no. No. And by the way, you know, whatever they won, 29 out of 32. I don't know. It was the greatest stretch in Eagles history with the stupid offense that everybody thinks is stupid. If it were that bad, all these other coaches, why couldn't they beat it? And you have the argument, and you've talked to me enough, Tone, that, oh, it's the talent. Oh, it's the talent. Hey, it's always talent first. You can't win without talent. But they had the same people during the collapse. What happened? The talent all of a sudden said, all right, we're done. We've been carrying this thing for too long. No, people adjusted, and then the Eagles didn't adjust, at least it quickly back. But the assumption that this offense was awful, and they had the best. The Eagles have been around for 91 years. They've never had a better stretch of football with that offense.
Wow. Speaking of the offense, I want to get your perspective on this offense and your observations from training camp, right? They've been on the grass for over 2 weeks, and you've been to the public practice. Give me your perspective of this offense thus far, under Kellen Moore's offense. And Jalen Hurts, just him specifically, he's been having a pretty solid training camp. Just give me your overall observations and what you think this offense is trending towards.
Yeah, the offense looks as advertised. Obviously, they have tremendous talent. I think one of the big things, we're through 10 practices and Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown an interception, which is rare for training camp. It's an environment where you're typically testing things and maybe making throws you don't normally make to see how far you can push it, so to speak. So I had always thought Jalen's history is that he's very good ball security quarterback. He takes very good care of the football, and they had a little bit of a hiccup in that aspect of it last season. I always thought that was going to regress to the mean, and I think it is. And they're not going to turn it over. And I still maintain the only difference between Jalen Hurts in 2022 and Jalen Hurts in 2023 is the turnovers.
Turnovers, exactly. That's the only difference.
He actually generated more touchdowns last year than his MVP season. Now, part of that, he had missed a couple games because of injury, but still right in the same ballpark. Same guy, just turned it over a little bit too much. And Dak Prescott went through the same thing. He had the 1 year. He had always been very good taking care of the football. And then he had the 1 year, which was 2022, where turnovers spiked, and he came right back to normal. I think the same thing's going to happen with Jalen Hurts. Obviously, AJ's been unbelievable. Devontae Smith, they're so consistent from day to day practice. Offensive line is still great. You got to figure out one position, but it's going to be a top 5 offensive line. You should be better at running back with Saquon Barkley, and Kenny Gainwell's having a heck of a camp, so you have some depth. Grant Calcaterra seems to be stepping up. Dallas Goedert had 3 touchdowns during that open practice you were talking about, so he looks like he's engaged and more involved. There's no reason they shouldn't have a top 5 offense, and that's kind of the expectations that Kellen is facing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the defense, it's all question marks. And I've joked a lot that it's, all right, we're going to build the best offense and Vic will figure it out on defense. I think that was how he's playing.
Yeah.
And their linebackers are bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Bryce Huff hasn't done much, but I was talking to a bunch of people this week about that because I think Bryce is going to be a good player. But, he's mainly lining up on the left side of the defense, which means he's going against Lane Johnson. And, he's
tough
not
sledding.
doing well.
Tough sledding.
That. And I was asking a bunch of people. I said, Hassan never did anything in practice either. Same reason.
I mean, there aren't many Lane Johnsons in the NFL. Thank God for that.
Exactly. And he's not going to be playing against him.
Right.
So I think he's going to be fine, but we have to see it. I mean, he's not a proven player. And Josh Sweat's got to have a bit of a bounce back. You need Nolan Smith to take a big step forward, but the defensive front, the tackles are good. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis look ready. The only question is, how much can they play? And their conditioning and the first 10 snaps got to be like, the 50th snaps got to be like the first 10 snaps. And that hasn't been the case with those two. So we have to see that. Cornerbacks are more talented. I don't like what they're doing with Quinyon Mitchell, moving them all around, throwing all this shit at them. I just put them on the outside and let them play. So I kind of disagree with Vic there. There'll be some hiccups, but they're so much more talented at corner that they'll be better by the second half of the season. And safety, I'm fine with as long as they stay healthy. I know everybody wants Justin Simmons. They're not signing Justin Simmons.
I don't think so either. I feel like as much as the Justin Simmons thing seems like the right decision, I've always felt like that's a far cry for the simple fact that, he was cut from the Broncos because they didn't want to pay him the money that he was owed. Because, he was making on average about $15 million a year when he was with the Broncos. He didn't sign anywhere in free agency because I think he's looking for something a little bit more long-term. He's looking for something close to that number. He's coming off of a Pro Bowl and an All-Pro year. That's why he's probably hasn't settled for anything quite yet. And I just think the Philadelphia Eagles aren't going to want to put that kind of money at that kind of position for a guy that's 30. They didn't even want to pay Hassan at age 30. So
no, and Hassan actually produced for them.
Exactly. So it's kind of hard to believe they'll do that for a guy that they've never seen play in their building.
Simmons is a classic big name trap. If it were Justin Simmons in 2019, yeah, sign me up. Last time I looked, it's 2024. For whatever reason, we all know. We went through this with TJ Edwards because Reed Blankenship is undrafted free agent. People don't forget about it and assume he can't do this, he can't do that. I got news for you. He played better than Justin Simmons last season. But people hear the name and they get excited by it. But more than that, Howie's already declared what he wants to do at safety. He bought out Reed's restricted free agency year because he's a starter. You don't do that if he's not going to be a starter. And then he tried to sign Xavier McKinney first, and then he veered off when that got too expensive to CJ. And those are starting safeties, and you're not bringing in Justin Simmons to be a backup. So, if somebody gets hurt in Baltimore tomorrow, it might be his first call if the Saints don't have him locked up by then. But they're not bringing him in to be a backup.
Right.
He doesn't play special teams. And their starters are secured. So it's not that he's a good player. He's not a great player. It's not what he was in 2019. But yeah, he's not coming here as a backup player.
Right. Speaking of, the safety position, from Vic Fangio's perspective, it's not often you see guys transition from corner to safety. As a matter of fact, I think he more so accurately said that
shut me down. I
that's
asked Vic
difficult.
that question, man.
That was you. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm speaking to the man then. He mentioned how it's not really, it's not as easy as people make it look. It's not that easy.
No, and Vic's right, because I'm thinking about Rod Woodson and Charles Woodson and Ronnie Lott back in the day.
Outliers.
These are Hall of Fame players. So Vic was right when he said, well, no, not a lot of people. And, and there's a lot of people that have done it, but they're generally very good players. The ones who don't do it, like Mekhi Gardner, moved from cornerback to safety this year as well. And nobody's going to be thinking about nothing against Mekhi, but nobody's going to be thinking about him 10 years down the road. Right. So plenty of people do it, but to do it successfully is a different part of the equation. But with Bradberry, I warn Howie all the time. I said, the longer you keep that guy, the longer Vic gets to see him play, the more he's going to want to play him. So beware. And that's what is unfolding as we speak.
Does Fangio really like Bradberry that much? Because I've heard that a lot, and I've always been on the fence about it. And from my perspective, based off what I saw last year, Bradberry's issues to me never really seemed to be – it never had anything to do with his football IQ. Bradberry is a very intelligent player. He's a professional. He's always going to be where he's supposed to be. But it just seemed like physically he couldn't get there, or he couldn't keep up, or – there wasn't enough physicality in the tackling, and he openly admits that to play safety, you have to be more physical. You got to play the run more, things of that nature, right? I guess I'm trying to figure out how is James Bradberry going to elevate his value at that position with, one, you already have starters there, and two, he's never really proven to be the most physical guy, and he's not as fast as you would like a guy to be back there.
Well, his game has never been predicated on speed, even when he was young, even when he was a very young player in Carolina. He's always been a prototypical zone corner. So it's interesting. He, to me, and I talked about before they moved him to safety, before they drafted Quinyon, before they drafted Cooper, I said, this is the perfect defensive coordinator for James Bradberry to have a bounce back year at cornerback, because that tends to be his career track, his trajectory. He has a good year, bad year, good year, bad year. And he's coming off a bad year, so it's time for a good year. But he's just big plays, 80% zone coverage. He's very smart. He's very savvy, communicates well, has the high football IQ, which is some of the things why you would think in theory that he could make the transition. As far as the physical part, you're probably right. But I do think, and certainly I do, you have that old school thought process, and certainly Philadelphia will always go to Brian Dawkins first. Those types of players don't exist anymore.
Okay.
And if they do, they're getting flagged 3 times a day, 3 times a game. Even Andrew Sendejo, who could barely play, but when he got here, but he would beat the you-know-what out of people. He's getting flagged all over the place. They've tried to take the physicality part out of the game. So why are you worried about the physicality part? I got to catch myself on that as well.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I mean, with the rule changes, especially with the hip drop thing, which is strange in my opinion, but nonetheless, the rule.
But I
changes.
mean, you can't even. The hip drop thing, I think, is going to be over. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference, but I don't think they're going to call it very much.
Okay,
but we'll see how it shakes. But you can't hit people in the middle of the field. You can't dislodge the ball from the receiver. The so-called woo hits, 9 times out of 10, the minute you hear the crowd go woo,
flag
is coming.
That
And
sucks.
whether
That's
it's
terrible.
completely legal or not, it's coming just from the wreckage of what it caused. I don't like it. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people do like it. You know, the oh, look at me people. I care about people. Oh, this is a violent game. I talk about it all the time. Everybody who plays it knows it. You know, I think we should get to the point as a society where we can look at adults and say, you don't have to play it, but if you want to play it, know that this is a violent game and, some things might happen. And most of the guys are okay with that. They might not be okay with it when they turn 50, but 20 young men tend to not to think that way. I don't know how you solve that problem. I don't think you can solve that problem, but you can't hit people like you used to. And so, there's no Cam Chancellors out there blowing people up. So I can't, you know, I even think because of the lack of linebackers, one of the things Vic did this spring is he's playing essentially Quinyon Mitchell as a dime player in that pseudo linebacker spot. He's a cornerback. I talk about, I probably told you, one of my favorite players in the NFL is Josh Metellus because he played 13 different, but they're making up positions. He played there's only 11 on the field. He played 13 different positions. Now he's a safety by trade, but he plays linebacker, he plays near the line of scrimmage, he plays slot corner, he played outside corner, he played on the defensive line. We're getting closer and closer to the so-called, the basketball type positionalist player aspect. And it's more about coverage now. So if you can throw another coverage player out there, as long as you can tackle acceptably, it's okay.
Speaking of things you don't like, right? You mentioned the Quinyon Mitchell thing. You don't like how they're moving them all around. And obviously when Cooper DeJean got hurt, it kind of altered their plans about how they wanted their approach. I guess that was that DB rotation or that DB depth, right? What's been your perspective on the position battle for cornerback 2 between Isaiah Rodgers, Keely Ringo, Quinyon Mitchell at a point? And what's been your perspective on the battle at nickel? I mean, just give me your overall perspective on the DB room and the position battles that are going on all across the board.
Well, I think they made an overcorrection to losing Cooper DeJean for 3 weeks. And I think in the long term that doesn't matter. Now, if Cooper isn't, let's see, 24th is when they started, so we're right about 2 weeks. So if he doesn't come back in about a week, then you start saying, all right, maybe they knew it might be a little bit more, and then you can make more sense of it. But I think it was a drastic reaction. Look, Quinyon Mitchell should be starting in Brazil against the Green Bay Packers at right cornerback, outside cornerback on September 6th. Period. And right now it looks like it's going to be Flay and Rodgers with Mitchell playing the slot. Would be, if you're watching training camp, that seems to be the way they're preparing. And what's interesting to me is Vic spoke this week and said, look, you don't draft a guy in the first round to not play cornerback. And by that, he means there are different positions, outside corner versus slot. He's here to play outside corner. So why are you wasting his time? Just get him to where he's going to be. And hopefully he becomes that 10-year Darius Slay type player. And you have Avonte Maddox to make do until Cooper DeJean is sped up and ramped up to get to that nickel spot. You even have Tyler Hall. These are true slot corners. Avonte's healthy. As long as he's healthy, he can play. We've seen it. That's one I don't get from Vic. I don't get it at all. And maybe as soon as Cooper, and I asked him this, I said, is that going to change your thought process as far as reps? And he knew what I was getting at with Quinyon. And he said, maybe, you got to see how he is. I think it is. I think maybe is yes when he gets out there. But, he's got a chance to be special. And I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's funny. Sean Desai is a direct disciple of Vic Fangio. And Vic loves Sean, by the way. In fact, if he wasn't here before and he got fired, he probably would have hired him and brought him here as one of his assistants. But if you go back to last year and Sean Desai, perfect example, when he moved James Bradberry to slot corner, we're all looking at him like, what are you doing? What is this? What the guy's an outside corner. What? Yeah. And Vic showed up and he said, very honestly, he's always honest to a fault. I like to throw a lot at the players early and see what they can handle, throw the kitchen sink at them, see what they can handle, and then scale it back. That's counterintuitive to what most people do, which is start them out slowly and then build them up to a bigger role. He does it the other way. And you've seen it with Quinyon. He's played left corner. He's played right corner. He's played dime. He's played slot. He's played every position as a cornerback you can play. And eventually Vic is going to scale back. And eventually he's going to be the starting right corner.
Yes, but doesn't that speak to the reverence or how they view Quinyon Mitchell as far as his versatility and his talent, that they believe that, hey, this kid is kind of taken
well,
to...
he's done it well, and he hasn't seemed overwhelmed. But I brought up Sean for the reason is even us media people, if Sean would have done that with Quinyon Mitchell, he'd be getting destroyed in this city. He'd be getting, what the hell are you doing playing Quinyon Mitchell, a dime linebacker? What are you doing playing Quinyon Mitchell in the slot? If Vic does it and we're all like, oh, it's Vic. He knows what he's doing. It's interesting. And he might know what he's doing. I'm not saying he doesn't. But he said his history is his history. His reputation is his reputation. But it's interesting because Sean does directly what Vic Fangio would do. And he did that last year with the Eagles. And everybody had a problem with it. And now that Vic's here doing it, nobody's got a problem with it.
Well, reputation earns you a certain latitude,
sure.
in most places. We know how that goes, John.
Experience, and it's real. He's got a proven track record. But in individual situations like this one with Quinyon Mitchell, look, Isaiah Rodgers, good player. Kaylee Ringo, good player. I think he's got a chance to be really good.
Yeah. You see a difference. You see a clear distinction between Quinyon Mitchell and those two.
Yes. You know my Chester Taylor story. I told it this morning again because Xander asked me. You remember that story?
I don't. You got to refresh my memory.
Chester Taylor was a very good running back for the Vikings and the Ravens, but for the Vikings at the time, he's coming off like a 1,300 yard season. Had another 500 passing, really good season. Different era where
I remember the story now. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah,
I remember the story. Go ahead.
And Minnesota was a bad team. They were top 10 pick, and they had a lot of needs. And one of them wasn't running back because you're like, oh, they got a pretty damn good running back. And they drafted Adrian Peterson. So, I said, I said to one of the personnel guys, I go, you guys got a good running back. You got holes all over the place. What's going on here? And he just told me, I said, wait and see. This guy's different. And he said, I love Chester, but F Chester. I don't know if we can curse on here. And that's where I am. And by the way, Rodgers and Ringo aren't even Chester Taylor, and Quinyon Mitchell is certainly not Adrian Peterson. But I use that as an example of, look, he's a better prospect, better player, better ceiling. Are those guys solid and good prospects themselves? Yes, but F those guys. It's Quinyon's job. Get him there.
John, I really do appreciate your time. I got a few more for you, and I'm gonna let you go, my friend. You've blessed my platform on more than one occasion, and I really do appreciate you for blessing me again today. You guys are locked in on Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. I'm here with John McMullen, Eagles reporter, Eagles insider for SI.com and Jacob Sports. Make sure you guys smash that like button and stay engaged. The show only gets better. John, I gotta ask you. I want to stay on Vic Fangio a little bit in correlation to the linebacker position. He was, again, we talked about how candid he can be, sometimes to a fault. And in his press conference after the public practice, he mentioned how Nakobe Dean had a first good couple days. And then after that open practice, he took a step back. Now, we all know what happened. Kenny Gainwell, like you said, is looking good, and Kenny Gainwell made him look very badly on a wheel route and, with a very intense juke move. I mean,
I want to get Allen Iverson breaking somebody down the juke move.
Oh man, and it's funny. My father was there, and I asked my dad, "Did you see it?" And he said, "Listen, no one should have to go through something like that in life. That juke was that bad." But I got to get your perspective on Nakobe Dean. I mean, it seems like the Philadelphia Eagles are trying their hardest to give him every opportunity to win that spot, and it just seems like guys like Zach Bond and Jeremiah Trotter are just outperforming him right now. Give me your perspective on that dynamic.
Well, I do think he struggled mightily in coverage, and it's not just in that open practice. It's been pretty consistent. Now, he's been good at the other aspects. He's probably been the best with run fits, and he's probably been the best as a blitzer. Even better than Devin White at that aspect. So he's been fine going downhill. But when he gets caught in space with Kenny or Dallas Goedert, like the other yesterday at practice, it ain't good. And I do think a lot of people, he had a very serious injury and was out for a very long time. And I think part of it is rust. And hopefully it gets incrementally better as he continues to knock some of that rust off. Like, I think the assumption by far too many is, all right, you're cleared, you're 100%, you're back to what you were before the injury.
Time is time. If you miss it, you miss it.
Yeah. In his case, it was a Liz Frank injury. So not only is it a serious injury, there's also the mental aspect you got to get over. Is my foot going to hold up? You feel that, and that's what, like, if Kenny's pulling the Allen Iverson on you, you're like, can I plant my foot and not look like a fool, or am I going to blow up my foot? There's all this stuff. There's a million things that go into it, and I think as he gets more sure of himself, it'll get better. But he's never going to be a great coverage player. That said, Devin White has never been a good coverage player. Zach Bond's never really done it. And Trott's a rookie, and Ben Van Sumeren's a very young prospect as well. It's not a good position.
Right.
I mean, if you look at this team, they have one of the most talented rosters in football. Quarterback, you can argue top 5. In the room as a whole, running back, you could argue top 5. Wide receiver, yeah, they lack some depth, but the 2 top guys, it doesn't get any better than AJ and Devontae. Mm-hmm. Tight end doesn't get much better than Dallas Goedert. Top 5 offensive line. Defensive front is good. It's just a matter of how good. Cornerbacks, we talked about, there's some unproven, but they got a lot of young talent. I think the safeties are underrated. You can make an argument at every position except linebacker. Linebacker, they are a bottom 5 team in the NFL.
Stop right there, John.
And that's
because
being kind. Yeah.
because Vic Fangio says in his press conference, right, his most recent one, he says, you can't have a productive defense or a good defense without having quality linebacker play. He said that, and that's counterintuitive to the way Harry Roseman has been approaching his position over the past several years.
You should tell that to Howie. Yeah, I mean,
so it's fascinating how a guy who knows that takes a job within an organization with a GM who has never shown any evidence of taking that position seriously.
Well, he took the job because he's always wanted to be. He's a Philly guy. He was here 40 years ago with the Stars. His family lives here. His mother lives here. He that's why he wanted to be here. And it's a very good organization, a very good team on part of it. It wasn't about, what does Howie value? I mean, he just wanted to be here from that perspective. And then, I think there's a lot of reverence to him, as I said. And some of that is good. It's like, as I said, I think the plan is, well, Vic will figure it out. And you might see some unique stuff. I said, when we're talking about the physicality of the game and how it's changing, one thing, Vic's old, but he's proven to be sort of like the defensive version of Andy Reid, and that he's not stuck in his ways. He knows, as he talked about with linebackers, back in the old days, you can get away with a less of an athletic guy who is physical, but now you got to cover people. And that has become more difficult. So maybe you see him playing more dime. Maybe that's what Quinyon Mitchell's about.
That was my next question. Is that why we're seeing a lot of dime? Is there a chance we see a lot of big nickel, right? Extra safety on the field or extra?
Yeah, I mean,
like that.
that's what Flores does with Mattel. I mean, they don't even have a second linebacker on the field usually. And if you can find that player, the closest here would be probably Malcolm Jenkins in recent history, of who can play all over the place, and maybe he goes about it that way. So, we'll see how it shakes out, but you can tell he is rotating guys. There's a lot been made every day, 10 practices. Devin White and Zach Vaughn have been the starters, which is true, but they keep rotating these guys to the point where, in yesterday's practice, they were doing more rotating than ever. For the first time, I saw Dean and Vaughn get first-team reps together. Trotter's getting more first-team reps. He's trying them all. And if you want a positive from it, I've said this, I don't think there's much difference between Devin White and Zach Vaughn. And if everybody got hurt and you had to play Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Ben Sumrin. So I think, and by that I mean, I think they got a bunch of good backup linebackers.
Okay.
So, but I don't think they have any difference makers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to transition to that D-line, and then I'm going to get you out of here, John. Once again, I appreciate your time. We spoke about the D-line briefly. You said how, it's good, but we don't know how good, right?
Yeah.
To your point about that, I've been hearing, not just from, content creators and fans and other people alike. It's just, it seems as though people have conflicting opinions about the state of that defensive line group. Obviously, you lost Hassan Reddick, you lose Fletcher Cox. Now, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Milton Williams have to step up now, right? Marlon T, who knows how good Moro Ujomo could be, right? Then you have Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, the young guys who you hope make an impact, but you're not really sure how much of an impact they will make. Nolan's the first-round pick, though, so you need him to make an impact. And then the bigger money guys, the guys that are making most of the money, I guess, Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat, the leaders on the edge, expectations are higher for them as well. So, give me your overall perspective on that defensive line and just how much pressure are they under to be good?
Well, they're under a lot of pressure because they're going back to Jim Schwartz days, they're the engine of this defense. I mean, you see it in practice. When they have a good day, the defense looks pretty good. When they have a so-so day, the defense does not look good. So they have to carry the defense. And I think they're very deep at defensive tackle. I think, the only questions about Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are about conditioning. Can they play the number of snaps that Vic wants them to play? But they're very good players. And I'm not downplaying the conditioning because that's been an issue with those two.
It seems like they're taking that seriously this offseason, by the way. Like you're hearing from the
Well, they are, but we heard the same thing from Jordan last season, and it was
true.
a little bit better, but not good enough. And he looks better, and he got thinner, and he got leaner. And Jalen got leaner as well. Jalen Carter. So I mean, but they're good players, and those are the two players Vic is literally building this defense on. They're the foundational players of this defense. Milton, a big year for him, contract year, getting an opportunity with no more Fletcher Cox. He's a good player. It's a matter of how good. And then the depth. Marlon has stepped up. Moro Jomo has taken a big step forward in year 2.
Okay, that's good.
Very good training camp to date. Even Thomas Booker. And it was interesting because Big said 5 to 7. That's what he wants. Interior defensive lineman, 5 to 7. Well, 5 are locked in. And if Thomas Booker, if he's going to lobby Howie to keep one more, it's probably going to be Thomas Booker, who's a guy nobody talks about, but is pretty consistent every day. And then the edge rushers. To me, it comes down to, I think Bryce Huff is going to be a good player. I gave you my Lane Johnson theory. Nobody looks good against Lane. Micah Parsons doesn't look good against Lane. Nick Bosa doesn't look good against Lane. DeMarcus Lawrence, when he was an all-pro, didn't look good against Lane. Nobody looks good against Lane. And he hasn't looked good against Lane. So who cares? He's not playing against Lane. It's just getting him better and better. I saw him rush the passer with the Jets. I know he can rush the passer. And people are saying, can he be a 3-down edge? Was Hassan Reddick a 3-down edge? He didn't stop the run. He was terrible in coverage. But he got to the quarterback, and everybody was happy. If Bryce Huff gets to the quarterback, everybody will be happy. If he doesn't, the Eagles got some problems, unless Nolan Smith takes the big leap forward. But one of those two guys, I compare it to Andre Dillard. They wanted Andre Dillard to be the left tackle. Ultimately, nobody cares because Jordan Mailata became Jordan Mailata. So they want Bryce Huff to be the 15-sack guy. But if Nolan Smith's the 15-sack guy, all right, who cares?
Right, that's true. Well, the financial department might care. That's about it.
They might, but it's not our money.
Good point.
And they'll figure it out. And they'll, now Jordan gets paid like he's a first-round pick, Jordan Mailata. But that, he's got 2 $60 million extensions. The contract, the financial situation will eventually work itself out. All I'm saying is they have to find a 15-sack guy. And it could be one or the other. As long as it's one, doesn't matter. Josh Sweat is good. It's just a matter of how good. And Brandon Graham is amazing. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what to say about
if you notice, I didn't even mention BG. I mean, he's the legacy product. He's in his swan song season. I think BG is going to come and do BG things, quite frankly.
The only question, and I've said this in the past, this is it. This is in the past 2 years since he's come off his Achilles year. They've been very cognizant of having him on the pitch count because they knew he was coming back and they wanted to extend him. Now they know he's done.
I'm letting it rip if it's me.
That's what I'm saying. He might as well empty the gas tank. And I know that's his perspective. So the Eagles might play him more than people expect for that reason. Well, whatever they play him, whether it's 300, 400, 500 reps, they're going to be effective reps. I mean, he's been one of the most consistent guys in this league for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to change in year 15.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Shout out to our guy 757 CJ with the $5 donation. He says, "Great to see Johnny Mac, one of the smartest guys I've seen that covers football. Tone, keep up the great work. Sky's the limit. Go Birds." Appreciate you, 757 CJ. Your words do not go unnoticed, man. I really do appreciate it, and I will revisit your super chat later on. Thank you, my friend. Final question, John, before I get you out of here. Once again, man, you bless me to no end. The Eagles preseason openers tomorrow. They face off against the Baltimore Ravens.
I hope it's canceled. Is that bad? I hope.
I was actually going to ask you, are you going?
I am going. I hope they cancel it before I go, but we'll see. They'll probably get down there and then they'll cancel it.
They'll be down there pretty much stuck in Baltimore looking for some seafood or something.
Yeah, that's the positive part. You can get some crab cakes. So we've already got that planned out. We're going to.
Who you driving with? You went Ed Kratz?
Kratz, Martin Frank. I think Jeff Kerr's going. It's going to be a whole group of us.
Okay. Sounds good. So, let's just say it's not canceled. Let's just say it's not. What do you believe will be the Eagles' game plan regarding the depth chart and the rotations? Do you see them playing any kind of starters? If not, who do you think is going to be first up on that offensive defense, or any key names we should look out for?
Well, it's interesting. I joked about the weather, but the weather might curtail it. If it's really bad, then it's probably going to be no key players. I don't really care about the offense on this team. Like, if you do play Jalen for a series or two, you have to play the offensive line. You're not putting Jalen Hurts out there without Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson. And Lane and Landon have been a little bit banged up early in camp. So all that factors into your thought process. To me, I'm not worried about the offense at all. And if they do play, it's going to be for a series or two. So sit down in front of Cozy. It's on Cozy TV, whatever the hell that is. Sit down very quickly if you want to see those guys. And the weather, if it's even remotely bad, they're probably not even going to waste. But the defense, those guys got to play. There's a couple guys, Slay's not going to play, but everybody else, it's like, yeah, they need some reps. Even Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, because of the conditioning, they need some reps.
Absolutely. John, as always, my friend, I really do appreciate the time you gave me, man. It's always fun talking to you. I do miss our times. Me filling in on Burries 365, me producing the shows, our football 24/7 episodes. It was always great talking football with you because your perspective is unique, and you always knew how do you say, allow me. You gave me space to balance my fandom with my analysis. And you taught me how to curve my fandom when necessary. And I really do appreciate you for being that guiding light through my development in this sports industry. So thank you so much for your time, my friend. Is there anything that you want to promote, anything that you're working on that you want the people to hear about?
I'm around too much. People hear me too much. So I don't know. But you can listen to Birds 365 every day, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. A little bit of shifting around for training camp. When there's a training camp practice, we do a night show, 6 to 8. So, but that'll gear back to each morning. And people, as you know, Tone, have woken up to us for over 4 years now. So I'm grateful for them. SI.com/NFL/Eagles. With my partner, Ed Kratz there. We cover the team on a daily basis. Nobody and everything's, we're one of the few free outlets left. So, you got to pay for the
I noticed that
athletic.com or everything else.
Yeah, I noticed that. NJ.com used to be free. Now it's you got to pay for it a little bit. And
now and by the way, I'm not saying, subscribe to all those guys. They do a great job. But SI Sports Illustrated has been great, good enough to keep it free, and it's a great resource, so people should check that out.
Definitely.
ESPN South Jersey for the local people in South Jersey, where I'm from. I'm on there every day during the season. Yeah, people hear me too much, Tony.
Nah, man, we love you, man. As my man CJ said, man, and I said it earlier, you're one of the best in the biz, if not the best in the biz. You're objective, you're honest, you approach your job with integrity, and we can't take people like you in this industry for granted. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, John. You take care. I hope the family's well, and you be safe out there, my friend.
Yeah, it's good to see you, buddy. Always fun.
Yes, sir. We'll talk soon. Shout out to my man, John McMullen. John is always dedicating time to his craft. He's a hell of a writer, has a great perspective, and he always gives me as much time as I need from him. John gave me an hour. I really only expected John to be here for maybe 30, 45 minutes. But the thing is, when John and I talk, we can't help but to just keep this thing going. Sometimes we go off the rails. Sometimes we get really deep, and I like to challenge John's perspective a little bit, and then sometimes he checks mine in terms of how I'm viewing things. Right? John is on the inside. He's talking to the players. He's talking to these coaches, talking to the personnel, things of that nature. The front office. He's keyed in, and John is my streamline into what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles. So, any sort of knowledge that you guys see me attain or share with you guys, best believe I always tap in with John just to see what he's thinking about, what he's seeing, what he's hearing. And again, John is just a good dude, man, making himself available to me.